Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. Yankees lose 3 of 4 to the Boston Red Sox, but they do end their 8-game losing streak to Boston with a win in Game 4. I was actually at this game, so was fortunate. Out of the 4 games, I was at the one that they won, so a pleasant experience as far as that was concerned. But overall, really bad by the Yankees to have lost 8 straight to your rival. Yankees are 2-8 in the season against the Red Sox, 3-7 against the Blue Jays, and it says a lot. It does. And Yankee struggles against the division. That's been a thing lately. I know they went 9-4 against the Rays. I understand that. We'll see what happens in the final 7 games against the Orioles. But the point is that the Yankees are a big contributors to why the Blue Jays and Red Sox are where they are. Give them credit. Absolutely. And it's just, really domination, not in an individual game sense, right? Because a lot of those games were close and the Yankees didn't win, but the fact of the result, it's inexcusable completely. And for the Red Sox to come into Yankee Stadium after the Red Sox were cold, Yankees were hot, and also like the fact that the Yankees were already 1-5 against Boston this season. This was a series circled on the calendar for Yankee players, everyone, Yankee front office, Yankee fans. Like, this was one that you were interested in, right? Like, even the casual fan or the one that, is kind of in and out, like, all right, what's going to happen versus the Red Sox? And it was not good and is not acceptable. Look, like, the tone of this episode, it still should be slanted more in the, bad direction than good. But look, naturally, it would have been, if they had been 4 games swept at home against the Red Sox, it would have been more of a scorched earth sort of vibe. But still, like, you can't let that last game totally change the way that, what we saw. The Yankees did again avoid losing, getting swept at home in a series. Like, again, that's a footnote. That's not a huge deal, but what's something I was keeping track of, and they have still yet to be swept at home. They came very close. Like, when you think about it, 4 games set against the Angels, they lost the first 3 games and they won the 4th, and the Red Sox series. So they have lost the first 3 games of a series at home, but luckily for them, it was a 4-game set. But where do we begin? Game 1 is just straight slop, right? And we'll start there. Going to be a lot to discuss in this episode. Let's just get the transaction stuff out of the way, mostly minor. Before the series began, Paul Blackburn, so most recently with the Mets, before that was with the Athletics for a while. Yankees signed him and added him to the Major League roster, and they sent down Alan Winans. So Winans, like, you knew that was going to happen. So Blackburn kind of replaced him as the long man, and Blackburn ends up coming into the Game 3 on Saturday and actually pitched well for the first few innings. And then it was a nightmare, an absolute, like, disaster of a 9th inning for Paul Blackburn, and what may end up being his only outing as a Yankee. And the reason I say that is because Fernando Cruz is expected to return at the start of the Washington Nationals series coming up. And I would have to think that Blackburn is the one that loses the spot. The only reason why I'm even questioning that slightly is because Blackburn is more of a long relief sort of guy and Cruz isn't. But that all said, like, who's the spot? Like, it's got to be Blackburn. I don't see who else it would be, quite frankly. So I think that's a pretty easy 1-for-1 decision. Blackburn is off the roster and Fernando Cruz on, which will be honestly a pretty big help. And I think Cruz, there is an opportunity there with some struggles in the pen going on where he could certainly take over a top 3, top 4 role in that Yankee pen. It's there for him to have. We'll see if he grabs it. So that's that. And also, like, I got to think Ryan Yarbrough is not too far away from returning, and that'll be a welcome sight too. When that does happen, just, I think, in whatever role it may be for him. But a lot of discussion points coming out of this series. I mean, yet again, Anthony Volpe's kind of at the forefront, and Jose Caballero ends up starting the last game of the series, and he will also start at shortstop in Game 1 of the National Series, only for Volpe to return in Game 2. Now, Volpe did come off the bench in Game 4, but Anthony Volpe, another big-time cold streak for him. And there's other things to discuss, right? It's not just a Volpe thing, but that is The Yankees made this such a bigger thing than it needed to be. Volpe, it's, he should have been sent down a while ago. Um, and the fact that he was playing every day just was not the right way to go about it. I understand that at certain points the options were limited, like behind him. I get that, right? And with Caballero, you have someone that is a lot more competent. I get that part, but still, like, he is so streaky, and it's mostly cold streaks, right? The hot streaks are few and far between, and when he goes cold, it's just, there's nothing that he can do. And he did make an error as well in that disastrous ninth inning game 3. So just wanted to kind of touch on that again. Like, it's it's a big talking point, but I don't think it's also fair to be like, okay, Anthony Volpe is the poster child for why they lost 2-4. That's not true. Um, Game 1 was an absolute disaster as far as defense was concerned. 4 errors committed, I believe 3 all in the second inning. I look at games 1 and 2, and look, game 3 with Garrett Crochet, you kind of expected that was going to be a tough one, but it's where games 1 and 2, and I would even say especially like game 1 was like so there for the taking, and they didn't win it. Like, and I'm not saying that splitting would have been like the cure all, but you can live with the split. If you're being realistic with yourself, you don't love it, but you can live with it. Whereas losing 3-4, that's really, really bad. There is a big difference. Winning 3-4, really good. Split, not great, but bearable. Losing 3-4, horrific. If they had lost all 4, obviously, no words for that. But Luis Gil started game 1 of the series, and look, it has been pretty for him. Command's been off, but like at the end of the day, 5 innings, 2 runs, 1 earned, 4 hits, 5 walks, which is the problem, and only 3 strikeouts. So Gil, he hasn't been sharp, but yet even when Luis Gil isn't great, he's limiting damage. Besides that first Marlins start, he's been keeping them in games. And if the playoffs started now, and you're in a 3-game, a best of 3 series, I don't believe that Luis Gil would be one of the top 3 starters, but there's still a chance with a month and change to go, a month and a week to go. That could happen, but it's an ever evolving situation. So for Luis Gil, not great, but the results weren't awful. For the Red Sox, it was Lucas Giolito, who was not great. And really, I think the Yankees should have taken advantage more. Like, the Yankees could not touch Brian Bale in game 2 or Garrett Crochet in game 3, but in games 1 and 4, Giolito really, it could have been worse for him. And then game 4, they really did get to Dustin May in way of the home run ball, which that's kind of when the Yankees win, they're hitting home runs. That's their formula. That's what they do. So Lucas Giolito, 4 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts for him. Let's talk lineup. Game 1 was the one game that Ben Rice would start at catcher. Austin Wells would start games 2, 3, and 4. Just something to, think about. And against righties, Rice is going to be in there. It's a matter of whether it's as a catcher or as a first baseman. And so, this was catcher, but again, we saw a lot of Austin Wells in this series. It's going to be kind of a platoon between Goldschmidt and Wells. Again, against those righties. But, I look at this, and Jason Dominguez only started game 2. Like, his role on this team is pretty limited right now. Aaron Judge continues to DH. He needs to do better. This was not a great series. So I'll give more like general thoughts, and then we'll, ride through the 4-game set here. But like, Judge needs to do better. And you got to think that the injury is playing some role in the struggles. But like, for me, it's about right now. Like, I want Giancarlo Stanton's bat in the lineup every day. And in my mind, I don't mind giving Judge a day off and letting Stanton DH, right? Because we know Stanton's not going to be able to play right field all the time. We just know that, right? And it's really not good for him. Like I agree with the way they did it, right? Where Stanton was in there for games 1, 3, and 4, right? Like 3 out of 4. Look, he simply put, it's just not feasible to have Matt through all 4 games, unfortunately. But for me, I want Stanton as a DH. He has been so good and so locked in. And yet again, I don't know where the full stats lay out for Stanton on the whole for the 4 games, but pretty good in the. look, he goes 0 for game 1, but he homers in game 3, and then in game 4, a couple of hits. Like, continuing to look good up there for the most part. There was a bad pinch hit appearance in game 2, which we'll talk about against Garrett Whitlock, but Judge has struggled a bit here, and looking for him to kind of get better. What else? We talked about the Volpe Caballero thing. Ryan McMahon, it's been a real struggle for him at the plate. More and more. The defense is fantastic. Like, that's his calling card. Really, really a good third baseman. And just, being there at the stadium tonight for game 4. Yeah, that was on full display. He made a lot of good plays over there at third. But yeah, what else? We saw Rosario. Rosario has been really good against lefties. Rosario started game 3 and has really good numbers versus Crochet. I wish Rosario would pinch in game 2. We'll talk about that. But yeah, like, Cody Bellinger's kind of been a little bit cool lately. I'm not worried about him at all. Honestly, I think he'll be fine. But yeah, a lot of these Yankees have similar numbers in the OPS department. Trent Grisham, Cody Bellinger, Ben Rice, Chisholm Jr., all in that kind of 810 to 820 type OPS range. And yeah, like a lot of home runs across the board there. So, game 1, let's get to it. It is an ugly, ugly second inning for the Yanks. Luis Seal fielding error on with Masataka Yoshida up. This was a play that Heel needs to make. Just the chopper to him, nothing too crazy, and he's unable to field it. And this chain reaction ends up leading to a Boston run, which is very, very important. The whole outlook of the game could have been completely different if this inning goes differently. And then a potential double play ball. Ceddanne Rafaela hits one. Heel makes the good throw to Chisholm Jr., and Chisholm Jr. airmails it off the screen. So Rafaela goes to second. So not only does he not get the double play, it was one of the worst throws you'll see. So that's the second error. And then Rafaela steals third. David Hamilton walks, which you can't do if you're Heel. And then Ben Rice makes a brutal mistake where Hamilton tries to steal second. He has that bag totally stolen. If you're Ben Rice, you cannot throw that ball. You just can't. And he throws it in the outfield, and so it allows Rafaela to score and David Hamilton to go to third. That's the concern. Ben Rice has not been terrible at catcher. He hasn't been. Like, if you needed him to be there, I'm fine with that. I am, right? If you want to make a better offensive lineup, then I'm okay with it. But that was just not smart on his part there. And hopefully learns from that. So that's 3 errors right there. But luckily, David Hamilton, I don't know what he was thinking about. He gets picked off by Luis Heel. Like, he just fell asleep. So kind of gifted one right there, because it could have been worse. So it only ends up 1-0, but just an absolute embarrassment of an inning. And again, that happens way, way, way too much on the national stage a lot as well. This was a Fox game against the Red Sox. Like, why is this? I mean, it's just, it can't happen. Bottom of the second, though, Ben Rice does make up for his mistake, his 20th homer of the year. And so Ben Rice, who had been hot coming into the series, continues it here. Homers to make it 1-1. Then let's go to the bottom of the 4th. The Yanks do score a run. Jazz with a single, and then he steals second, goes to third, and a throwing error by former Yankee Carlos Narvaez. So it's nice when Jazz, because he's very home run to nothing, when Jazz can reach first base and he's in that steal mode, like, that's huge. Yankees have some guys, not that many guys, but there's some. Jazz being one of the more important ones, because Jazz is kind of one of the few guys that's in that everyday lineup, because Dominguez at this point, he's more of a bench player. He just is. And Caballero, kind of the same, of course. So Jazz, it's key that he can get involved in the run game. And then Paul Goldschmidt against a righty, and that's been my gripe. He's been a little bit better against righties lately. Look, Paul Goldschmidt's mostly a singles type hitter. He just is, especially against righties. But there, an RBI single to make it 2-1. So that was big. Top of the 5th, though, the Red Sox respond. And that was the thing. Whenever someone would score, there was a response for a while in this game, not the whole way through. Like, there was always that response. Basically, that was kind of a theme here. And in the 5th, walks kind of get the best of Heel. Leadoff walk to Roman Anthony, single Burt Bregman, who was great. I mean, Bregman, doesn't matter if he's an Astro or Red Sox, he's going to kill the Yankees, and that's exactly what happened. And then Jarren Duran single. So bases loaded. Trevor Story strikes out, but then Nathaniel Lowe, the staff let him make it 2-2. recently signed by the Red Sox after the Nationals cut him loose. Um, he was, for my money, arguably, at least in terms of expectation, like the stats may not have bared this out, but Nathaniel Lowe was like the MVP of the series for the Red Sox. He came through time and time again and was a thorn on the Yankee side, the former Ray. So there is some for Yankee fans, there's that familiar feeling a little bit, because he was in the division for a bit, two at this point, and it could have been worse in a way, right? Heel kind of navigates through there, and it's 2-2, bottom of the fifth, which is a very key inning. Um, Justin Wilson, the former Yankee, comes in to face Ben Rice, and Ben Rice walks. Give Ben Rice credit. Ben Rice had some really good at-bats against lefties in this game, which is important because Ben Rice is not going to play that often against lefties, just the way it is. He's not. And Chisholm Jr., who I think the stats confirm this, he's not great with runners in scoring position. Again, he's a very home run and nothing type of guy. But here, he gets a little lucky, but they count all the same. Trevor Story's unable to catch the bloop, and it's an RBI single for Jazz to make it 3-2. Then after a Paul Goldschmidt walk, it's bases loaded, 2 out for Ryan McMahon. This was a huge, huge at-bat against the lefty Justin Wilson, and I understand you're not going to pinch hit here. I get that. I get it. It's the fifth inning. You're up 3-2. But Ryan McMahon strikes out on a pitch that was really high. He swings at ball 4. So, that for me was probably the most frustrating at bat of the game. I'm thinking, feel pretty good about that. Yeah, McMahon, I want to see more offensively. And I know that when he came here, I said his calling card was defense. And that's kind of been the case. I think the toughest thing is the lack of power. Only 1 home run for Ryan McMahon as a Yankee, but that was a bad strikeout by McMahon. And what do you know? Next in, the Red Sox tied up off of Camilo Duvall. Duvall it's been rough as a Yankee. He was able to finish out game 4, but Duvall is definitely lower on the pecking order as of now. He is behind Devin Williams unequivocally. That speaks volumes. But for Camilo Duvall, a 1-out single by David Hamilton. And then Hamilton advanced to second on a disengagement violation, which can't happen. And then Narvaez walks. So then it's first and second, 1 out, and Roman Anthony, the rookie for the Red Sox, with an RBI single to tie it up at 3. So again, Duvall, tasked with a pretty big spot, and it was too big for him. Makes it 3-3 right there. Mark Leiter Jr., though, does finish out the inning. So it was a good job by Mark Leiter Jr. in game 1, but we'll talk about it in game 2. But Leiter Jr. there does clean up Duvall's mess against Bregman and Durant as well. Greg Weiser, the former Yankee, the Red Sox bullpen is chock full of former Yankees. Weiser with a scoreless 6th. Luke Weaver had a very, very rough 7th inning. Luke Weaver's had his moments, right? He's been mostly very good on the whole this season. He had that rough stretch, but this was a bad outing for Luke Weaver. And it could have been worse, but leadoff single Trevor Story, then an RBI double by Nathaniel Lowe to make it 4-3. That, again, Nathaniel Lowe getting it done again. And then, look, there was a couple of walks. Things got dicey. Weaver was able to kind of work his way through, and then Tim Hill, bases loaded, 2 out against Roman Anthony, full count. And Tim Hill strikes out Roman Anthony. Hill, that's the perfect spots for him. And it's a shame he didn't come into that Dodger game last year in game 1 of the World Series, but Tim Hill is able to get out the lefty, and it stays 4-3. Steven Matz comes on with 1 out, the former Met, with 1 out in the 7th, and Ben Rice, and hey, give Boone credit. He kept Ben Rice in. He could have been shit for him, and Ben Rice triples to make it, we're on 3rd, 1 out. But then, and when I talked about the McMahon at bat earlier, I kind of forgot about the really bad Chisholm Jr. at bat here. He strikes out against Steven Matz. And look, it's a little unfair to go crazy on Boone and say, hey, why didn't you pinch hit for him? Now, I feel as if Ahmed Rosario was kind of ridiculous how there was certain spots that he didn't pinch hit in this game and in this series. I'm more so. But Jazz strikes out there. That was a tough at bat. The tie was right there. Ben Rice is not a guy that gets triples. Typically, it was his 3rd triple of the year, but still, keeps it at 4-3, and then Paul Goldschmidt pops out. That sucked. That really did. That was like their last really big time shot. Eighth inning was a combination of Tim Hill and Yuri De Los Santos. Got a little bit interesting, but they're able to kind of work their way through it. Get a lot of Red Sox base runners. The Red Sox were 3 for 19 with runners in scoring position. You usually lose when you go 3 for 19 with runners in scoring position, but they won this game. Bottom of the eighth, Garrett Whitlock. He goes 1-2-3. I thought maybe Jason Dominguez would pinch hit for Volpe. Did not happen again. It just speaks to Dominguez's role of really not being anything. On the bench in this game was Dominguez, Wells, Caballero, and Rosario. I thought Dominguez there was the spot. Volpe did hit it to the track, I think, in right field, but still, Garrett Whitlock had a pretty good series here. Top of the ninth, it's Yuri De Los Santos, and it's another defensive miscue that leads to damage. With one out, Paul Goldschmidt with a really bad error. He kind of cuts in front of Jazz, but it's a play that Goldschmidt needs to make, and he boots it. David Hamilton reaches, and what do you know? Inning would have been over. 2 out, 2-run homer for Roman Anthony. 5th homer of the year. So Aroldis Chapman, who's been absolutely lights out. It's such a fucking shame as a Yankee fan to see Aroldis Chapman do this for Boston. 3-run game for Aroldis Chapman. It is completely game over. And what does Chapman do? He puts the Yankees down 1-2-3. So again, bad defense was really the story of this game by and large. It was. And the Red Sox, in a lot of ways, the Red Sox, they had a lot more offensive pressure than the Yankees did. Not to say the Yankees didn't get anything going in this one, but because it was better than what we saw in games 2 and 3. But yeah, this was a tough loss in the way that it happened in game 1. Let's go to game 2. Game 2, we should move through a little bit more easily, although there is, to me, some interesting talking points at the end of the game. Game 2, fucking Brian Bayo, who has been a thorn on the Yankee side, and not for nothing, Bayo's been pretty good in general lately. Bayo wins to go to 10-6. 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts for Brian Bayo. Just a fantastic outing for him. And then Max Fried, this was good. And Fried, for a while there, was kind of having a rough time, in this game, but ultimately he was good and it was much needed. Fried was very bad in his last, 7-8 outings. Fried goes 6 scoreless innings, 4 hits, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, and it could have been argued that maybe he could have started the 7th inning. He only threw 7 pitches in the 6th inning, but I think the decision was kind of made going to the 6th that was going to be it for him. So I'm not going to go crazy about it, but I understand fans and others that would have wanted him to start the 7th, especially because Mark Leiter Jr., and that was weird to me. The fact that Mark Leiter Jr. got the start of the 7th inning, I didn't totally agree with that one. As far as the lineup went, Goldschmidt on the bench, Stanton on the bench, as well as Caballero and Rosario. So the one start for Dominguez in this series was here in game 2. So again, scoreless for a long, long time. Not a whole lot for me to really discuss. The Yankees didn't get much of anything going. In fact, they did not get a runner in scoring position all game long. 3 singles for Grisham, Rice, and Wells, and a walk by Dominguez. That was it. I mean, pretty pathetic stuff from the Yanks as far as the offense was concerned against Brian Bayo, who, the Red Sox won the Bayo-Fried matchup at Fenway Park early in the year, and they win it again. Let's just go to the 7th inning. And again, apologies if there was things missed, but want to move along here. Mark Leiter Jr. starts out the 7th. And it just felt like too big a spot. And look, understand this. Understand that Luke Weaver was not available. So you were working from a place where you were a little bit thin. Devin Williams felt like the right place to go for me, and then you just kind of see where the game goes. I understand that you may have then had to bring in Mark Leiter Jr. after that. I get that. I do. But while it's tied, that's where I would have went, especially with a decent amount of righties coming up too, where that's kind of more Devin Williams' thing. But Mark Leiter Jr. with 1 out, Nathaniel Lowe is the pinch hitter, doubles, and then Connor Wong, who's had a really, really, really rough year for Boston, gets an RBI double to make it 1-0 Red Sox. And that was it. Just like that. And for Mark Leiter Jr., it just hasn't quite been good enough. I don't despise Mark Leiter Jr. I think There's a place for him in this bullpen, but uh, the Mark Leonard Jr. that was on the Cubs just really has not been the guy with the Yankees. Just hasn't been. Look at the stats. It is what it is. So one thing, Boston, and then Devin Williams pitches a real. Devin Williams has been looking better lately. Again, keep him away from the ninth. Like, keep him in situations that are not to the maximum pressure. And Devin Williams seems to be okay. 1-2-3 inning for Devin Williams in the eighth to keep it at 1-0. Garrett Whitlock. Garrett Whitlock goes 1-2-3, and it was interesting that Volpe batted for himself. That was an interesting decision. And then they have Stanton pinch hit for McMahon, which was just confusing to me. I would have rather had Stanton against Chapman if it were me. Like, that felt wasted. 2 out, no one on. And it was a bad at bat by Stanton, too. He struck out and didn't look good doing it. But even before that, I'm thinking, okay, I kind of understand there, but like, why not just do it for Volpe? And then what also happened is Caballero comes in, so you lose the Caballero potential pinch run situation. I felt like that wasn't right. Now let's go to the ninth. The top of the ninth, David Bednar gets into trouble, but gets out of it. That's what I'll say. And there was a bad play by Volpe that happens in this inning, too, where Rafael reaches. It was a fielder's choice on Volpe that was just stupid. He should have went to first. Like, he tried to do too much. But at the end of it, it doesn't cost them a run. Bottom of the ninth rolls around. It's Aroldis Chapman. Goldschmidt pinch hits, which makes sense. He's great for lefties, but he grounds out. A nice play by David Hamilton to get Goldschmidt out. And then Trent Grisham hits for himself when you had Ahmed Rosario available, who had good numbers against Chapman. In fact, Ahmed Rosario had a walk-off home run for the Mets at Yankee Stadium against Aroldis Chapman. Yankee fans remember that one. Not for the right reasons. And Rosario just sits there, and they go with Grisham, who has not been good against lefties. Look, I think Trent Grisham's been fantastic offensively this season for the Yankees. He has been. But that wasn't the spot. And then Ben Rice strikes out as well. And I understand why Rice was up, because they just pinch hit for Wells. So if it did go to extra innings, you did need to keep Rice. So I understand that part of it. I think Grisham probably should have been pinch hit for. But again, Yankee offense does absolutely nothing in game 2, and they lose 1-0. That was a tough one. That was game 3. Game 3 is the ugly one. Game 3 is the ugly one, but like, in a lot of ways for me, like, it didn't sting. It almost got humorous by the end of it, just in how pathetic it was. Garrett Crochet, who's been a Cy Young contender with Scooble, and Crochet's got a real shot. I feel like I kind of downplayed it. Like, I think maybe last episode, Crochet's got a legitimate chance to win the American League Cy Young. 14-5 with the win, 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 11 strikeouts for Crochet. For Will Warren, not good. Not good. And Will Warren wasn't great against St. Louis, but he had been pretty good for a while. Warren with the loss goes to 7-6, 4 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. And I'm just curious, who, assuming, this is a lot of time, a lot of ifs. I mean, the playoffs aren't a guarantee, but if they get there, and it is a best of 3, right? And you do end up playing 3 games, it's going to be Fried and Rodon in 1 and 2, right? It just is. And then who's going to be that third guy? Again, like, I feel it keeps on changing. For a while, I thought maybe it's Will Warren. Like, he's been in the rotation all year. He's been fairly consistent in a lot of ways. But now, like, after Cam Schlittler did what he did last time, like, it could very well be him. So just kind of an interesting sort of thing to think about more for down the road. But not a good outing for Will Warren. Maybe deserved a better fate. We'll talk about that. But not great for Will Warren. This was more of a righty-laden lineup, so no Chisholm Jr. in the starting lineup, no Rice, no McMahon, no Dominguez. Goldschmidt leading off, Grisham batting 6, that whole thing. But in the third is where things get fucked up. And it is where Austin Wells, while Alex Bregman was up, and at this point, it was first and third, 1 out. Wells has an opportunity to make a play near the screen and is unable to come up with the ball. He needs to make that play. He does. And it wasn't an error. It wasn't the easiest play, but it's one he's got to make. So ultimately, Bregman walks, and then Durant strikes out. So in theory, the inning could have been over, but it's not. And Trevor Story takes advantage of that with a 2-run double off of Warren to make it 2-0. The Red Sox, when you make mistakes, the Red Sox are making the Yankees pay. Top of the fourth is a situation where it ends up being bases loaded, no out. Carlos Narvaez is hit by a pitch by by Will Warren, which could not happen like in a 1-2 count situation. And just good fundamental baseball by the Red Sox. Sac fly Roman Anthony, all runners advance. And then Alex Bregman sac fly to make it 4-0. So back-to-back sac flies, 4-0 Sox. Bottom of the fourth, Giancarlo Stanton homers. Opposite field homer for Stanton. 16th homer of the year. It's off of Crochet, makes it 4-1. Also, like Ahmed Rosario gets a couple of hits off of Crochet. He's been very good against lefties, been good against Crochet in his career. Like, Yankees haven't faced that many lefty starters. Definitely expect to see Rosario against his former team, the Nationals, in game 2 against Mackenzie Gore. A little sneak preview there for the next series. But 4-1, and then the top of the fifth, though, they get that run right back. Trevor Story, opposite field shot, 20th homer of the year, and that would be all for Will Warren. Tim Hill would pitch the fifth, this part of the sixth, and then Paul Blackburn comes on, and Paul Blackburn actually pitched really well for 2 1/3 innings. It was the last inning that was a fucking nightmare. And Crochet is just dealing at this point. 8th inning, Greg Weissert comes on. Yankees get a little bit of a rally going, but ultimately Stanton strikes out with second and third, 1 out. And then the Yankees pinch hit Jazz. And so the Red Sox say, okay, we're going to bring in Justin Wilson. And Jazz strikes out. So again, that's the unfortunate thing where Jazz, is not great against lefties, but I feel like he's going to be in positions where he's going to bat against them a lot. 9th inning is where Blackburn, the whole shit just goes crazy. RBI single, Jarren Duran makes it 6-1. Sac fly Nathaniel Lowe. No, sorry. RBI single Nathaniel Lowe makes it 7-1. RBI single Cedime Rafaela makes it 8-1. There was a play at some point. Oh, okay. No, we didn't get there yet. No. Okay. It is on the David Hamilton RBI single, I think, where Chisholm doesn't cover second. Volpe could have maybe used like a help there. And Volpe ends up airmailing it over first base. It was pretty ugly. Like, it was just one of those situations where it, it goes from bad to worse. And then there's a balk where Paul Blackburn throws to Ben Rice, but Ben Rice wasn't covering first base, makes it 10-1 Boston. And then Carlos Narvaez 2-run shot to make it 12-1. Like, it got crazy. It was very embarrassing, and the Red Sox win 12-1. So a 7-run 9th inning off of Paul Blackburn, and what, again, probably will be his only outing as a Yankee. So pretty sad because he was pretty good for 2 1/3 innings. And then let's go to the last game. Was at this game tonight, Sunday Night Baseball. Red Sox, Yankees. Red Sox going for the 4-game sweep, but they would not do it. And Carlos Rodon pitched pretty damn good. But I should say, I should be correct there. Pretty damn well. Got a little bit tough at the end. Too many walks for Rodon, but he only led 1 hit. He has been the best in Major League Baseball in opposing batting average among qualified pitchers. Rodon wins to go to 14-7, 5 2/3 innings, 1 hit, 2 runs, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts. And the 2 runs were of the inherited from Luke Weaver. But again, Rodon kind of deserved a little bit of that. It was a rough 6th inning. He was so pitch efficient through 5 innings. And then he ended up throwing I want to say 37 pitches, I think, in the 6th inning alone. And wasn't able to get out of the 6th. But all in all, you liked what you saw from Fried Rodon specifically. That was encouraging in this series to see that. Because the Red Sox are tough. They typically do well against left-hand pitching. Game 4 is where Caballero starts over Volpe at short. Goldschmidt back to the bench for this game. Dominguez continuing to be on the bench. But the Yankee home run ball helps them out here. And Dustin May struggled, giving up 3 home runs. The former Dodger loses to go to 7-10, 4 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts for Dustin May. And it's Jazz Chisholm Jr., who sadly, his best friend passed away the day before. And so this was in honor of him. Jazz Chisholm, with his 100th career home run, it's a 2-run shot, 23rd homer of the year for Jazz to make it 2-0 Yankees after a Giancarlo Stanton single to start that 2nd inning. Then at the bottom of the 3rd, Trent Grisham. Whenever Trent Grisham gets a little bit cold, it's a quick reminder that Trent is here to stay. Home run for Trent Grisham. And when I say here to stay, I mean this season. He's a free agent at the end of the year. But Trent, with a no doubt about it shot. Both of them were no doubters. Trent's are more on a line, whereas Jazz's are more like high arching type home runs. Um, Trent's were definitely, further in distance, but it makes it 3-0. And then in the bottom of the fourth, it would be the one non-home run by the Yankees. Leadoff double by Stanton. He absolutely scalds it past the center fielder, Nate Eaton. Then a little bit of small ball. Jazz with the ground out to get Stanton over to third. Ryan McMahon's hit by a pitch, and Jose Caballero with a sac fly. And it had to be hit deep with Stanton on third, and it was. So again, I like what I've seen from Caballero. Want to see him continue to get playing time. He provides a spark, and he's been playing pretty well. So 4-0 Yanks after 4. Bottom of the fifth, Trent added again. Another multi-home run game this week for Trent Grisham. 25th homer of the year. He legitimately might hit 30 home runs this year, which is pretty exciting. 5-0 Yanks. Dustin May would be done in that fifth inning. And then the top of the sixth is where Rodon runs into some trouble. 3 walks and long at-bats. Romy Gonzalez, Alex Bregman, and Trevor Story with walks. And ultimately, they got to bring in Luke Weaver. And Nathaniel Lowe pinch hits. And what does he do? He dunks in a 2-run single. Because of course he does. The run's discharged to Rodon, and it makes it 5-2. But then Weaver is able to strike out Jarren Duran. Look, and Jarren Duran was the tying run. So that was kind of as close as the Red Sox really got. Right there. And then Walker Buehler comes on and looked good to start, but then he ends up getting hit by the end. Top of the seventh, Luke Weaver is able to pitch a scoreless 7th inning, so good job by Weaver there. Let's go to the top of the 8th. Devin Williams comes on. There were some defensive switches. Stan came out of the game, which I found a little interesting because he was due up in the bottom of the 8th, but they wanted to get him out of there. Maneuvered some things around. Caballero went from short to right, and they brought Volpe in. If Volpe had somehow fucked up, like in the first play went to him, the crowd would have went crazy, but he made the play. And as well, Goldschmidt came in for Rice at first. So Devin Williams pitches the 8th inning and does a great job. 1-2-3 inning with a couple of strikeouts. Again, Devin Williams, it's not as if the stuff is not there. I really think it's a mental thing with Devin Williams. Again, he can't be the closer, but I'm open to other situations, and he comes through there. Bottom of the 8th, the Yankees get a little bit of a cushion to the point where David Bednar didn't need to be used, which was nice. 1-out single for Goldschmidt off of Buehler against the righty, which again, like to see that. And then Jazz, he's at it again. Another 2-run homer for Chisholm. 24th of the year, 4 RBIs on the night, 7-2 Yanks. And then on top of that, it was Camilo Doval. It wasn't without some struggles. There was a couple of hits allowed. Nathaniel Lowe, of course. And Cedane Rafael a double, but he's able to get out of there without giving up a run. A nice scoop at the end by Goldschmidt. Ryan McMahon made a lot of good plays. This one, McMahon, it was a long throw, and Goldschmidt is able to kind of secure it. And the Yankees get the 7-2 win, salvage the series. They avoid the 4-game sweep, but ultimately a very, very disappointing series for the Yankees. And they will continue their homestand with 3 against the Washington Nationals, who have actually been pretty gritty lately. Like they're coming off of a week against the Mets and Phillies where they won, I think maybe 3 of those games and really were in almost all of them. So game 1 is between the pitching matchup of Brad Lord and Cam Schlittler. Both have done well. I mean, Cam Schlittler is coming off the best start of his career, and Brad Lord's been pretty good lately for the Nationals. So could be a decent pitching outing there between 2 righties. Game 2 will be Mackenzie Gore against Luis Gil. So a lot of strikeout potential in this matchup. Mackenzie Gore, though, has not been great lately. Got off to a pretty good start this year, but Mackenzie Gore has had his struggles, and he's a lefty, so expect to see more of a right-handed lineup for the Yankees. Then game 3, a matinee game. Getaway day matinee game at Yankee Stadium Wednesday between Cade Cavalli and Max Fried. Now, Max Fried is used to face the Nationals a lot, although a lot of unfamiliar names in this lineup. Look, I'm sure, CJ Abrams, forever long, he had been the Nationals, and a few others he's accustomed to. But again, it's familiar in terms of the uniform, not so much the players. Either way, that's a matchup that on paper very much favors the Yankees. And look, you're looking to get a little bit greedy here. This is a week of 3 home against the Nationals and 4 at the White Sox. We know that the Yankees have been capable of doing pretty well against the lesser teams. If they do well, it's not going to change my opinion on how I feel that this team is going to do against good teams in the playoffs. It's not great, but I know they're very capable of hitting a lot of home runs, and winning games against lesser teams. So let's see if that plays out against the Nationals next to finish out this homestand after the Yankees end the 8-game skid against the Red Sox. They lost the first 3 games of the series, but luckily were able to win the final game and to avoid the really embarrassing 4-game sweep. So there will be one more series against the Red Sox at Fenway Park in September, but, sometime between then. And like I said, Yankees will continue this homestand and look for better results as they will take on the Washington Nationals.